So today, Caitlin Clark released a water bottle. Yes, I mean this. A Gatorade water bottle. I think it's going to be impossible to get because this is a water bottle. Not only did it sell out, it was obviously going to sell out. The damn site crashed. The website crashed.
I'm back with another exciting story, and today we're diving into a major conversation surrounding Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and the rapidly changing business landscape of women's basketball. At the center of it all is a reported $50 million Gatorade partnership involving Clark, and the reaction has been impossible to ignore. Caitlin Clark already holds one of the biggest Nike deals ever awarded to a WNBA player, and her growing list of major partnerships shows why brands continue to see enormous potential in her. From Nike to Wilson and now Gatorade, Clark has become one of the most recognizable names in women's sports. One of the biggest talking points is Gatorade's reported Rainberry launch connected to Clark. Instead of simply putting an athlete's name on an existing product, the campaign was designed around Clark's personal connection to the flavor. The branding, packaging, and presentation were all built to make the product feel like something uniquely associated with her. When the product launched, fans reportedly rushed to the website, with screenshots of error pages circulating online as demand overwhelmed the site. The attention surrounding the release quickly turned the drink into another example of Clark's ability to generate massive interest beyond the basketball court. For a company like Gatorade, an athlete partnership is about much more than social media followers. Brands look at sales, engagement, visibility, merchandise performance, television audiences, and whether an athlete can attract consumers who may not even follow the sport closely. Clark's arrival in the WNBA gave companies plenty of data to examine. Her games drew enormous attention, Indiana Fever merchandise became highly sought after, and interest in the league reached new levels. For major sponsors, those numbers provide a reason to believe that Clark has significant commercial potential for years to come. The reported $50 million figure makes the partnership even more noteworthy. If accurate, it would place the deal among the largest endorsement opportunities associated with a female athlete. But this is also where the Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese conversation becomes complicated. Reese has built a powerful brand of her own, with major visibility, a massive social following, and an increasingly recognizable presence in fashion and sports. Her supporters argue that her influence should not be measured simply by comparing sponsorship deals or product sales with Clark. At the same time, online discussions have focused heavily on sneaker sales, sponsorship attention, and how different brands are positioning the two young stars. Some claims circulating online about specific companies reconsidering partnerships or particular products struggling should be treated carefully unless the companies themselves confirm those reports. What is undeniable is that Clark and Reese represent two different types of commercial power, and both have helped push women's basketball into a much larger spotlight. The bigger question is whether Clark's reported Gatorade partnership signals a new level of investment in women's sports. If brands continue seeing major returns from athletes like Clark, Reese, and other WNBA stars, sponsorship money could keep growing. So now the question goes to you. Are you Team Caitlin, Team Angel, or do you think both players are helping the WNBA in completely different ways? That reported Gatorade partnership is just one piece of a much bigger marketing story. Caitlin Clark's rise has been changing the conversation around what female athletes can achieve commercially, and her endorsement portfolio is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Before Clark, Wilson Sporting Goods had only one athlete associated with a true signature line, Michael Jordan. Now, Clark has entered that exclusive territory. Clark's reported endorsement portfolio includes major partnerships with Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, and Wilson. Each deal would be noteworthy on its own, but seeing several major brands commit to her within such a short period has created an entirely different level of attention. The Wilson partnership deserves particular recognition. A signature line isn't simply a limited edition product or a temporary advertising campaign. It represents a long-term commitment in which a company continues developing and selling products connected to an athlete's personal brand. Jordan didn't simply promote sporting equipment. He became a global sports brand, and Wilson's decision to place Clark in its signature line category demonstrates the company's confidence in her long-term commercial potential. The insurance giant has decades of experience using sports figures to connect with consumers. Clark's partnership represents another major step in her expansion beyond basketball. Rather than simply being recognized as a WNBA player, she is becoming a marketing asset capable of reaching audiences across multiple industries. Reports have valued Clark's Nike agreement at approximately $28 million over 8 years, making it one of the most significant shoe endorsements in WNBA history. Even more importantly, Nike has been expected to develop a signature shoe around her brand. That possibility is enormous because Nike's signature athlete strategy has created some of the most valuable sports brands in history. The Jordan brand alone demonstrates how far a single athlete's identity can extend beyond the court. And Clark now has 4 major names attached to her commercial story: Nike, Wilson, Gatorade, and State Farm. These aren't obscure companies chasing a temporary social media trend. They are established brands with enormous consumer bases and sophisticated marketing operations. When companies at that level commit to an athlete, the decision is generally based on much more than online hype. Clark's growing commercial influence has also attracted attention from Forbes and other business-focused outlets. Her value isn't determined solely by follow accounts or viral moments. Factors such as sponsorship revenue, audience engagement, television exposure, economic impact, and the ability to bring new fans into women's basketball all matter. Clark generated substantial off-court earnings during her first year in the WNBA, reportedly reaching around $11 million according to Forbes estimates. That figure was extraordinary for a first-year WNBA player and highlighted the size of the market forming around her. She isn't attracting only longtime basketball fans. Her name reaches casual sports viewers, younger audiences, fashion consumers, and people who may have never followed the WNBA before. Caitlin Clark is no longer being evaluated solely as a basketball player. Major companies are treating her as a long-term commercial platform with the potential to influence products, audiences, and entire categories of women's sports. And if that momentum continues, her biggest endorsement chapter may still be ahead of her. Economic impact is another major factor when evaluating an athlete's commercial power. The question isn't simply whether a player attracts attention, but whether that attention creates measurable value for the league, sponsors, retailers, and the wider sports ecosystem. According to the rankings being discussed, Caitlin Clark checked many of those boxes. That is what made Angel Reese's absence from the Forbes ranking such a major talking point. Reese wasn't placed below Clark or pushed into a smaller category. She simply wasn't included. That doesn't mean Reese lacks commercial value. She has a major social media presence, significant media exposure, and a high-profile partnership with Reebok. For many athletes, those accomplishments would represent an extremely successful business portfolio. Forbes evaluates several factors beyond popularity, including endorsement potential, audience engagement, commercial influence, and an athlete's broader impact. When those measurements are applied, Clark has continued to separate herself financially. The comparison between the two players has also become part of the public conversation because Reese has frequently been positioned as one of Clark's biggest rivals. Their rivalry has generated enormous attention, but attention alone doesn't automatically translate into identical sponsorship value. Clark was recognized as the WNBA's highest-paid player when off-court earnings were included. And that's particularly notable because her WNBA salary is still governed by the league's rookie scale structure. In other words, the overwhelming majority of the financial difference isn't coming from her basketball paycheck. Brands are paying Clark at a level that reflects how much commercial value they believe she can generate. When you put the Sportico figures alongside the Forbes rankings, the contrast becomes much harder to dismiss. Still, this isn't necessarily about declaring one athlete a winner and another a failure. Reese has built a valuable brand, and her partnership with Reebok remains significant. The more interesting question is whether the gap between the two athletes' commercial trajectories is getting wider. A signature shoe is supposed to represent a major investment in an athlete. It's a company's way of telling consumers that this player is central to its strategy. Reebok made plenty of noise when it partnered with Reese, particularly after Clark's major Nike deal received so much attention. The timing created a natural competitive storyline. Nike had Clark, while Reebok appeared to be establishing Reese as its own major star in women's basketball. Reese's signature footwear has reportedly remained available months after launch rather than disappearing immediately. Reports of markdowns at major retailers have fueled debate about whether consumer demand matched the expectations surrounding the release. When retailers discount inventory, it can indicate that sales velocity wasn't strong enough to maintain the original price. Of course, discounts can happen for many reasons, including seasonal promotions, inventory management, or retailer strategy, so they shouldn't automatically be treated as proof that a product has failed. Her sneaker hasn't even arrived yet, but anticipation is already generating enormous discussion. Nike has been building the marketing strategy around Clark long before consumers can actually purchase the shoe. One athlete already has a signature product sitting in stores, while the other's unreleased shoe is generating speculation about how quickly it could sell. For brands, however, the calculation goes beyond 1 month sales. Companies examine consumer sentiment, engagement, repeat purchases, cultural relevance, and the long-term risk and reward of associating their identity with an athlete. Both players have helped transform the visibility of women's basketball, but the commercial market appears to be assigning them very different values, and that gap is becoming one of the biggest storylines surrounding their rivalry. When major companies evaluate an athlete, they aren't looking only at follow accounts or viral clips. They ask a much bigger question: what does the public associate with this athlete, and does that association strengthen or weaken the company's image? There have been claims that some sponsors have become more cautious about Reese, with critics pointing to the perception of ongoing tension between her and Caitlin Clark. It's important to separate verified business decisions from online speculation, but the narrative itself has become impossible to ignore. Every major athlete has a digital footprint. Social media posts, interviews, public comments, brand announcements, and interactions with other players are all watched closely by corporate marketing teams. Because companies aren't simply buying an athlete's popularity, they're attaching their reputation to that athlete. If the partnership creates positive attention, the brand benefits. If the association repeatedly generates controversy, executives have to consider whether the exposure is worth the potential downside. The most noticeable development has been the debate surrounding the marketing of Reese's signature footwear. A signature shoe is supposed to be a major centerpiece of an athlete's commercial identity. When promotion appears limited or retailers begin discounting inventory, questions naturally follow about how the product is performing. Still, discounts alone don't prove a partnership has failed. Retail pricing can change for numerous reasons, and claims about a company's internal strategy shouldn't be treated as fact without confirmation. Caitlin Clark's commercial momentum continues to build across multiple industries. The reported Gatorade partnership, her Nike relationship, Wilson's signature line association, and her growing media presence have created a business story that extends far beyond the basketball court. Even before her Nike signature shoe officially arrives, anticipation surrounding the product has become a major talking point. That's the difference between a viral moment and sustained commercial power. Long-term commercial influence keeps generating interest, sales, partnerships, and new opportunities year after year. Reese has clearly established herself as one of the most recognizable young athletes in women's basketball. She has a major following, significant brand exposure, and plenty of potential to expand her business empire. The reported numbers, sponsorship portfolio, media attention, and consumer interest all point toward an athlete whose market value continues to grow. For Reese, the challenge isn't simply competing with Clark on the basketball court. It's building a commercial identity that can stand independently rather than constantly being measured against another player. It rewards attention that converts, products that move, partnerships that strengthen brands, and athletes who can maintain relevance over time. The story isn't just about one Gatorade deal or one Nike shoe. It's about what happens when elite athletic ability, enormous crossover appeal, and long-term brand strategy come together. And with the Indiana Fever heading into the next chapter alongside players such as Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham, the basketball side of the story is becoming just as interesting as the business side. Is Caitlin Clark already the most commercially powerful player in women's basketball, or does Angel Reese still have the potential to close the gap? Let me know your take in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates.